we begin, let me ask you something. Have you ever met someone online and felt that quiet voice in your head telling you something isn't right? Dating apps promise connection. A simple swipe, a quick conversation, a normal meetup. But sometimes that swipe opens a door that should have stayed closed. Tonight, you're going to hear 5 Tinder dates that didn't just go wrong. They ended in absolute horror. These stories start like ordinary dates, normal people, normal conversations, and then something changes. So turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and remember one thing: not every match is safe. Dating apps are supposed to bring people together, but sometimes they do the opposite. The people in these stories trusted a photo, a name, a short bio, and that was enough to step into something they couldn't control. If these stories teach you anything, it's this: listen to your instincts, notice the red flags, and never ignore that feeling when something feels wrong. Story 1, the perfect match. I matched with her on Tinder late on a Sunday night. Her profile felt perfect. Normal photos, normal bio, nothing exaggerated. We talked for a few days and everything felt easy. Too easy. It was as if she knew exactly what to say to keep me engaged, reading my mind through the digital screen. She suggested we meet at her apartment instead of a public place. That should have been my first red flag. In the world of modern dating, let's stay in on the first date is usually a sign of comfort or a trap. I chose to believe it was comfort. When I arrived, the building was a towering monolith of concrete and glass, but the hallway was unusually quiet. No music, no TV sounds, no muffled arguments from neighbors. It was a vacuum of silence. She opened the door slowly and smiled. It was a beautiful smile, but something about her expression felt rehearsed, like she was acting human instead of being human. Her eyes didn't crinkle at the corners. They stayed wide, scanning me. Inside, the apartment was spotless. No personal items, no photos of family, no clutter on the counters, just white walls and dim, clinical lighting. As we talked, she kept checking her phone. Not texting, just opening it, staring at the screen for exactly 3 seconds, then locking it again. At one point, I asked her if anyone else was home. She smiled that practice smile and said, "Not yet." That's when I noticed a second phone on the table. It was unlocked. The screen showed a Tinder chat with my profile, but the messages were different. They weren't the ones I sent. It was a log, a detailed list of my habits, my height, my lack of local family, and my scheduled arrival time. They were planning messages about me. I stood up, blood turning to ice. I told her I needed to leave. Her smile vanished instantly, replaced by a cold, vacant stare. She said very calmly, "They usually don't notice that part." I didn't respond. I walked out, ran down the stairs, and never looked back. The next morning, her profile was gone. So was the apartment listing. It was as if she had never existed. Story 2, something felt wrong. We met at a cafe downtown. She arrived late, sat down, and apologized without making eye contact. She looked terrified, her hands trembling as she gripped her cup. Throughout the date, she kept asking strange questions. Not "what do you do for fun?" but things like exactly where I lived, if my windows had locks, and what time I usually got home from work. I laughed it off, trying to lighten the mood, but her eyes were fixed on a parked car across the road. When we left, she insisted on walking with me. Halfway down the street, she suddenly stopped. She whispered, "He's still here." I asked who she meant. She looked at me, eyes shaking with tears, and said, "I'm not supposed to bring anyone with me. I was supposed to be alone." Before I could ask anything else, a man stepped out of the car. He didn't run. He walked toward us with a terrifying, slow rhythm. She grabbed my arm and screamed, "Run!" We ran in opposite directions. I didn't stop until I reached a police station. Later that night, I checked her Tinder. Her profile photo had changed. It was her, standing next to that same man, smiling. But her eyes weren't smiling. They were screaming for help. Story 3, the disappearing date. She suggested a late-night walk near the beach. I agreed, thinking it was romantic. When I arrived, she was already there, standing near the water. She didn't wave. She didn't smile. We walked for nearly an hour in the pitch black. Every time I tried to talk, she answered with short, empty responses. I realized there were no other people around. No lights, no sound except the heavy, rhythmic thumping of the waves. I turned to look at her, to ask if she was okay, but the space beside me was empty. She was gone. No footsteps in the sand. No sound of someone running. I pulled out my phone and texted her, "Where did you go?" The message delivered instantly. A second later, I received a reply, "I'm behind you." I felt a cold breath on my neck. I never turned around. I ran until my lungs burned. Her profile was deleted before sunrise. Story 4, The Silent Apartment. He invited me over after dinner, said he lived alone in a quiet part of town. When I entered his apartment, the air felt heavy, like it was pressing against my skin. The lights were dim, and every door inside the apartment was wide open, except one at the end of the hall. I asked about the closed door. He said, "I don't go in there anymore." We sat on the couch, and I noticed he didn't blink. He just sat there watching me breathe. That's when I heard it. A soft, wet scratching sound from behind that closed door. I asked him what was in there. He smiled, a wide, unnatural grin, and said, "That's why I don't live alone." I stood up to leave, and as I opened the front door, I heard his voice right in my ear, whispering, "You were her replacement." I didn't stay to find out who she was. Story 5, The Last Message. The date itself was normal. Dinner, laughter, a shared dessert. She felt safe. When I got home, I received a message from her. "I shouldn't have met you." I replied, asking what was wrong. She sent another, "He knows now." I blocked her, thinking she was playing some twisted game. 2 days later, a message came from an unknown number. It was a photo of me, sitting at that dinner, taken from a dark corner of the restaurant. Under it, one sentence, "Next time, don't swipe. Not every match is safe." The people in these stories trusted a photo, a name, a short bio, and that was enough to step into something they couldn't control. If these stories taught you anything, it's this: listen to your instincts, notice the red flags, and never ignore that feeling when something feels wrong. Be careful who you swipe right on. You never know who or what is waiting on the other side of the screen. Good night.